Welcome back to the Hive, everyone. I hope you haven't missed me too much. I've been hard at work. Really, I have. At the quilting angle of our 3D Illusion Alice in Wonderland quilt. And I have to say, a lot of that has been mental. How do I get rid of that mental block of what should I quilt on this beautiful quilt? Because let's be honest, that is a real thing. It happens to all of us. And I'm guessing it doesn't matter how much experience we have. We all hit that wall at a point where we're just like, what should I quilt? And you can't really video that because you would see a lot of me scrunching my forehead, not saying a lot, and that'd be really boring content. Let's just be honest, I was bored with myself. But I did finally come up with some because I am the camera person, the quilter, the sewer. I do it all. I'm doing all of this. I will take more time to get this put together because I want you to see how much that goes, how much goes into it, but also to kind of let you off the hook because 20-30 minute segments really don't encompass the journey that is quilt making. This is an art that takes time, and you can rush through a project and get it done start to finish in a day if it's pretty simple. This is probably one of those, but I want to go slow enough to where if you have questions, you can pop those into the comment section and I have time to answer those for you because they come up. They really do, and like I said in a previous video, I had to learn this without the tool of the internet. So I was reading books, I was learning on my own. I had some mentors that were able to help me along the way, and that was great. But now I'm passing that information on to you, plus what I've learned on top of all of that. I have discovered that I can work a full-time job. I can quilt. I can do other things. And I could just fit that quilting in wherever possible, whether it's 15 minutes or a whole day or somewhere in the middle. It's all quilting time, and it creates that space of happiness and joy for me. And I hope that it will create that same for you. It's not supposed to be a source of frustration. Perfection is something that I think too many of us try to strive for. So I guess what I'm saying is don't try to be perfect. Just get something done, something that delights you. So with that, let me show you what I have been working on so far in quilting this quilt. And obviously I didn't finish it. I'll tell you that right now. I didn't finish the quilting, but when I do finish it, I will post a picture on my Instagram, and I might even flash back to it in another episode going forward. But I think you want to see that quilting, so let's go there. For this first area here, I decided I wanted to do something feather-like, but I didn't want to exactly do a feather. So what I ended up doing was a paisley feather. As you'll see, I made the spine, and now I'm creating the paisleys and then going back and doing the other side a little bit later down the road. You're going to see me kind of flip back and forth between the left and the right sides of the spine as I create those paisleys. And I'm not too concerned with keeping them within the border of the 2.5-inch strip, although that is my goal. If it pops outside of there into the other area, I'm not too worried about it. I want to point out here that it's really hard to see the thread, and that's sort of the point. The point is not to have the thread stand out so much that it's detracting from what either the design is or the design on the fabric. I want for this, I want the thread, for the most part, to sort of blend into the background of my fabrics. So what I've done is I took several samples of thread that I thought might work, and I've kind of test driven them on there. Ultimately, I decided on this very light cotton pink, which it shows up in the darker areas, but in the light areas, it fades into the background. And that's sort of what was most important to me, because as we go along and into the interior of the quilt, where we have the characters of Alice in Wonderland highlighted and featured, I didn't want the thread to cover those up. So that's kind of where I made that decision. That's an artist's decision. In some quilts, you may want your thread to stand out, and that's okay. That's a design choice that you can always make. I had so much fun doing this design. So here I'm using a couple of different rulers. I'm using an arch ruler, and then I'm using my straight ruler, and I'm kind of making like an arch with lines in it, and then a little bit later you're going to see me do perpendicular lines on the outside of that arch. And it kind of develops this, while we have all these straight lines and right angles with our quilting, with our piecing, this gives me the chance to add a little bit of curve and just kind of blend the two types of shapes together. Makes it a little bit softer around the edges, and gives it a little more interest. So, and I didn't really be exact. I didn't make it an exact science as to how far apart the arches were, or even how far apart the lines were. So here are those perpendicular lines that I was talking about. And you'll notice I'm not really paying too much attention to how far apart the lines are. I'm just making them organic, if you will. Just kind of going with the flow and what feels nice. I don't want them so close together that they look like pinstripes, but I don't want them so far apart that it's hard to connect the design. So I'm just wending my way through the design and putting those in there. And then one of the fun things that I did with this when I got to the other side was I'll show you that here in a minute, but I kind of made it like a little corner. Here I'm doing an all over design that I decided to do for all of the pink caterpillar sections. I'm just doing some swirl design in those areas just to kind of fill it in really quick, because that's more of a background all over design. Something that is super quick to do, fills in a lot of area in a very fast amount of time, and it's after a few times of practicing the swirl design, you'll find that it's one of the favorites. It's a go-to, really, because it is so, it can be mechanical and not a whole lot of thought needs to go into it. It's a very simple design. This is more of a simplistic design that I made. All I'm doing here is I'm making wide circles in this area here that I'm quilting in, and that's it. And the point of that is just to kind of have a contrast between the denseness of the swirl design and the arches and lines, and then kind of give it a little breather, a little break with these large circles. And here we're back on the borderline, and the reason that I went the order that I went was basically where my needle was. When you're on a long arm and you are working through a quilt, you generally want to get one section done before you move on to another, and I try to avoid cutting my thread as much as possible. Now, that's not to say I'm not going to ever do that. I will break my thread here and there, but I try to not do that so often if I can avoid it. So here I am finishing out that arch and line design on that piece of this area, and I'll carry that through on all of the other sections that are similar to this. So when it's all done, if you remember, that little piece was the one that was in the corner to frame the hair at the center of the quilt. So it'll kind of look like they were all part of the same square,
and had all the same design. So I think that'll look really cute, and it'll unify all the areas of the quilt together. Here I'm coming to the end of quilting this section, and I didn't show it in here, but what I ended up doing at the end where the two sides meet is I ended up making an echoing square. I'll definitely point that out when I'm done with the quilt, and I'll show that maybe on my Instagram, maybe here, but you'll definitely get to see that.
Well, there you have it, folks. What did you think of the designs I chose for this quilt? Like I said, a lot of thinking went into this, and ultimately I decided on some dense in areas and some not so dense, kind of balance it out. I can tell you that where the faces of Alice, the Queen, the Mad Hatter, and the Cheshire Cat are, I'm not going to be doing dense quilting. I am going to kind of let them stand out. So that's going to be very basic. But again, I will show it when I'm finished on my Instagram, and definitely I'll leave the link in the comments below so that you can go to that and see that. And that'll be a great place also for you to follow me to see when my next video is coming up. I will say spring has finally sprung. That doesn't mean I'm not going to be quilting. I'm just going to be outside enjoying the sun more. But I will get more skills building, more quilting, piecing, and all of that in. As always, if there is something you want to see, please leave me a comment. I would be happy to do that for you. Until next time, thank you for joining me here at the Hive, and I can't wait to see you next time. Take care, everyone.